Hello and welcome to the August and September 2023 episode of the Seagull. The Seagull is the place to stay up to date on everything you need to know about the 102nd Intelligence Wing at Otis Air National Guard Base, right here from beautiful Cape Cod, Massachusetts. I'm Tim Sandlin from Public Affairs, and together with Airman First Class Julia Ahasey, we'll get you up to speed on what's going on here at the wing. This will be a special episode of the Seagull as our RSDs are so close together. This one will serve for the month of September as well. How you doing, Julia? What's going on? How you doing today?
I'm pretty good. How are you doing, Tim?
I'm doing fantabulous.
Great. So in this month's show, we hear from the leadership of the 102nd Civil Engineering Squadron and how they empower their airmen by helping them understand the bigger picture, giving them a voice, giving them opportunities to lead, prioritizing morale, and encouraging the warrior ethos. We also hear from a trio of airmen who have all served here at Otis, 2 with the Air National Guard and 1 from when Otis was an Air Force base. The best part, they're all related.
Then we'll hear a clip from our other podcast, Chevrons, where we recently held a roundtable discussion about this month's time workshop that you won't want to miss. But first, in this month's command message, Colonel Tim Gordon, Vice Commander of the 102nd Intelligence Wing, stresses the importance of being prepared for our upcoming midpoint inspection.
Greetings, happy August, and welcome back to Otis for our annual end of summer drill weekend. I hope everyone's been able to rest a bit and enjoy the summer. My comments today are going to focus on our September ACC midpoint inspection, which is fast approaching. And yes, I recognize that we've had numerous inspections over the past few months. This one, however, is part of our normal inspection cycle, and it's designed to assess our readiness posture for both our support to home station ISR missions and our deployable UTCs. This will actually be the first time that these readiness postures will be inspected simultaneously. So it's important that we all spend this weekend understanding our roles in the inspection and finalizing our preparation for it. Here's a general overview of the events that will take place as part of the inspection. The exercise will begin with a large contingent of wing members deploying to Tactical Training Base Kelly, located right here on JBCC. These airmen, who have already been identified and are primarily from our support functions, will demonstrate to the ACC inspection team their ability to function and perform their job under stressed and degraded conditions, similar to what they may experience at a FOB. Meanwhile, here at Otis, we will be challenged to support our home station intel missions that will be surging to support exercise events, absent the support of the airmen that have deployed to TTB Kelly. So it's an interesting challenge. The typical Air Force model with the fly-in mission would have the mission and the support functions deployed together. Here at the 102nd, we need to be able to support our home station mission and our deployment requirements, all at the same time. So that's the overview, and that's the challenge. With that, I ask that every wing member be aware that everybody has a role in this inspection. Whether you're a deployer or providing home station support to our intel missions, or you're an intel operator, you should have an understanding of the intent and the purpose of this inspection. And be aware that you could be directly involved in an exercise inject or scenario, something that you'll be expected to respond to. So we all just need to be a little extra vigilant and aware of what is happening around us and on top of our game. And once again, we will show yet another inspection team how impressive and professional the 102nd team is. Have a good drill.
The 102nd Intelligence Wing Enlisted Force Development Committee recognized the 102nd Civil Engineering Squadron for their dedication to airman development. Squadron leadership empowers their airmen by helping them understand the bigger picture, giving them a voice, giving them an opportunity to lead, prioritizing building morale, and encouraging warrior ethos. In this clip, squadron leadership explained how they accomplish these important goals.
It's important for any member of the Air Force to feel empowered and know their purpose. The purpose gives them a reason to be here. It makes them want to be part of the mission and what we do. If it becomes just a job to them, then they're not really committed. They're not going to put 100% in. They're not going to give you what you need. That's one of the biggest things a leader can do, is always give their airmen their purpose.
I am Lieutenant Colonel Christian Layton, and I am the 102nd Civil Engineering Squadron Commander.
I am Senior Master Sergeant Calvin Melvin, the Senior Enlisted Leader of the 102nd Civil Engineering Squadron.
I like to instruct all of our airmen on how critical their role is to the mission. It's really important so that the airmen understand why we're doing what we do, and they need to understand the big picture. And a lot of times we kind of can lose sight of that. What I try to do every drill morning is give our own civil engineering, current intelligence world brief. So what we try to focus on is what's going on with our allies, what's going on with the emerging threats, our near-peer competitors, what is the State Department, what's our diplomacy, what are they looking at, and how does that relate to the military? And then we tie that back to what does that relate to the Air Force and civil engineering. And that goes all the way from the strategic all the way down to the tactical level. And that right there helps give our airmen a big understanding of why they come in for drill, why they do their training, and what they're being prepared to do when we deploy, and how they can make an impact in our overall national defense.
The airmen really get into that, and there's a lot of questions asked. It makes great communication back and forth, and that's how we start our drill off every drill, is to give them the reason why we're here. And that just starts the drill off in the right direction.
The threats on the horizon is really important for them to know, and also to know how important civil engineering is. It's absolutely critical, especially for an air base, especially in a deployed location. Often it's in an austere environment, and civil engineering really is the backbone of the mission. At an air base, the real nucleus is that airfield, and without that airfield, those aircraft are useless. So without our airmen doing our jobs and their jobs, the Air Force cannot meet its mission for air superiority and bring in air power to the fight. So it's absolutely critical that everyone understands how their tasks, their daily task, really results into mission success. And we really foster that environment.
I am Tech Sergeant Victor Kalinsky. I am the structures supervisor at the 102nd CE. You get a sense of belonging, and you get a second family out here. You get to work every day on simple projects that at first you're looking at of why are they so tedious, why am I doing this? And then when you really get a chance to deploy, go out TDY or do something else, you start to realize your little project that you did the other day plays a huge role somewhere down the line.
One of the ways that we like to empower our airmen is to give them all a voice.
I'm Master Sergeant Sean Kerrigan, and I'm the first sergeant at the Otis Air National Guard Base for civil engineering.
We like to use open communication with everyone. It makes our airmen really feel like they mean something to the unit, so they can come to me with any issues that they're having as the first sergeant, but they also go to our other senior enlisted leaders and they go to their supervisors if they have problems. But it really makes everyone feel close, and it makes our airmen feel like that we're looking out for them. It makes them feel like they belong, and it makes them want to stay. Then, you know, it's more like a family here than a job. So when airmen show up on a drill weekend, they're happy to show up. It brings something else to the table other than just the work that we do.
One of the things that we found very successful is to empowering our airmen, giving them a voice. I have met with the airmen. What I do is I have them come up with the 3 things that they like the best about the squadron and 3 things that they would like to see fixed or changed. That right there really gives me a roadmap on things that I should take a look at. And when I do address some of those changes, it really is a direct impact from the airmen, and they can see, hey man, that commander just listened to me and made a change based on the airmen's recommendations. We also push an environment where a lot of the answers come from the lower levels. They're the experts at their craft, and we rely on them to do their jobs. And we listen to them, and we make those changes based on some of their recommendations.
A lot of times when we talk about empowering airmen, we think about just the airmen, but it actually encompasses everyone in the Air Force. We also need to think about our NCOs, our senior NCOs. So when I sit down and do an ACA, I don't just sit there and take the ACA form real quick and go through that. It takes me probably at least an hour and a half. When I sit down with them, I talk about the National Defense Strategy, how it pertains into the Air Force strategy. I pull out the Enlisted Force Development Blueprint, and it walks you right through from day one all the way up to becoming a chief and how that all works. And I try to tie that into each individual's career I sit down with them, I talk about their career, where they want to go, what they want to do. I talk about courses that they should be taking, and I actually take the time to get to know them. I even get to the point where I look at all their points and help them through and make sure they have all that stuff accounted for. I really take the time to show them that I care about where their career is going and how that's working, but I try to teach them and show them a lot of stuff along the way so they can then empower their airmen so they know where they're going and what they need to do, and that really empowers them to keep their career moving in the right direction.
We've also seen senior airmen, staff sergeants, where we've brought them up from the beginnings of their careers. They're going out, they're getting their electrical degree, they're becoming plumbers on the outside. They're bettering their outside lives, and I think a lot of their confidence comes from their military careers, from being in civil engineering.
The big things at CE that we do, we try to, any training that we try to have the airmen lead the training as much as we possibly can. That way they're getting the experience of going out, learning, finding the information, and they're going to get up front and brief it. It makes them feel empowered because they're the ones that are now responsible for training, and it's not just always the same people up front talking. So being in CE, there's obviously always work that needs to be done around the base. We try to get the members out working, and when we have jobs to do, our younger airmen are usually leading those. While we're here doing all the administrative stuff, running the squadron, the younger senior airmen, staff sergeants, they're the ones out running the projects. And they like that. They like to be the ones in charge. They have to come back and give us briefings, tell us where they're at, tell us what they need, and they have full power to run that project how they see fit. And that makes such a big difference. It makes them feel like they're really part of the squadron. They're making things happen, and they see their results of what they're doing.
A good example is last year we deployed to Montana, where we worked on a large project at the Blackfoot Indian Reservation. And there we were tasked to work on a 7,000 square foot senior living facility. We actually put a staff sergeant in charge of the overall project. We knew they had the skills, and we let him take that and run with it, organize, and get after it.
Not only empowers the airmen who get to take on the responsibility of the project, it also shows the other airmen, maybe a senior airman or another staff sergeant, that they will also have that opportunity in future projects, and that they're in an environment that wants them to succeed and wants to give them that opportunity.
That also builds trust, and trust is very important. It shows that the leadership has a lot of trust in the junior airmen to tackle these projects, and that we have full faith and trust in their abilities and how to manage. When they're out there, they own that project. They're very proud to work on the project, so they're really working hard.
Does more than just gives them their purpose or empowers them. It makes it so they have trust in themselves and they feel like they can go get things accomplished. They don't always have to look to leadership to tell them what to do. They take the next steps. They move forward in projects. They get things done on their own. It helps to improve the quality of what they do. It helps to get projects done faster. We've seen a lot of strides in just how much work we can get done on a drill weekend, and that's a huge impact to the daily operations of the whole wing. It helps every asset of what CE does.
I am Staff Sergeant Trenton D. Terra with the Heavy Equipment Shop for the 102nd Civil Engineering Squadron. My leadership, they set us up for success by setting us up with the right material, tools, and things we need. If any issues occur, they jump to it. We adapt very well, and it's because of them at the top. Our leadership does trust us to get the job done, and it's important for them to let us work out here on our own. So if we mess up, we learn how to fix our mistakes, or we learn what goes wrong for the next time so we can perform the job flawlessly.
Most projects we do, there are no real challenges that we can't tackle and handle ourselves inside the unit by putting our brains together or talking amongst each other with the different shops. We all work as one big family, so even if it's something that one particular shop can't handle on their own, we can always call in our friends and family members from the other shops to come help us out.
In any situation, you want somebody that's going to have you back, and that's always going to be there. I'm Technical Sergeant Jose Barada. I'm the Morale Committee Coordinator from the 102nd CE. We arrange activities and events for everyone in our squadron to try to build something that we can have fun and bond with. The Morale Committee is important to our squadron because we haven't had it in a long time, and we see people coming and going, and we want to have people feel more at home with just the simple fact of being a wingman. Senior Master Sergeant Calvin Melvin is the one that said, hey, I want us to get closer. What can we do? And then he said, we got to establish a morale committee. And That's how that started. You know, I got to give it up to our colonel and senior Melvin, because our colonel is the one that started this in Montana. He wanted this bonding time. He wanted us to be closer, and I'm seeing that now. So I really appreciate this squadron. I don't see myself ever leaving because of how much we've united within the past year.
We're doing a hike. We are going to hike as a squadron Mount Monadnock, and we are also tying in some training goals. We're going to be working on our convoy operations. We're going to do TCCC on the mountain and then do some land navigation. But what's really important about that hike is that we get out and we all do it together, so that when we all get to the summit and we can take some great squadron photos with our guide on, it's something that all the airmen can look down and look around and just be proud of their accomplishment, you know, the physical accomplishment of climbing that mountain and getting down. And I really think that'll be one of those moments that you look back and it's just building that squadron camaraderie, that unit cohesion, which is so critical. It really is for a squadron, so that you can lean on each other for support during a 6-month deployment, lean on doing the jobs and just getting through the day-to-day. It's really critical for squadrons to have that within the unit.
My name is Staff Sergeant Sean Keene. I'm with the 102nd Civil Engineering Structure Shop. As far as getting ready to go down range, that's always as a squadron, because we have the same tasks. So it's important that we do our TCCC training together, we do weapons training together, and that requires the whole squadron to come together. I don't know if every squadron really is that cohesive. I think a lot of shops do work apart from each other. They will come together at times, but I think you'll see, as you're observing CE, we sit together like glue.
Over the last couple of years as commander, I couldn't be more proud of the squadron. They've really accomplished quite a bit in the couple of years that I've been here, and I'm really proud of each and every one of them.
From the top of Mount Monadnock, where the 102nd Civil Engineering Squadron sees the summit. Engineers, lead the way!
We recently had the opportunity to speak to 3 generations of airmen who have spent a fair amount of time here at Otis. Staff Sergeant Kyle Merrihew from the Base Safety Office brings his father and grandfather, both retired master sergeants, along with him into the studio, and we have a chat with them and they tell us all about their experiences. Let's go around the room. We've got Tech Sergeant Kyle Merrihew. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Staff Sergeant Kyle Merrihew. I've been in for about 7.5 years now. I enlisted in January of 2016. I spent the first about 7 years, 6.5, 7 years with the 212th Engineering Installation Squadron, and I switched over to Wing Staff Safety Office in September of last year.
Great. And sorry, I didn't mean to promote you so quickly. You'll get there eventually. Yeah. And your father, retired Master Sergeant Kevin Merrihew. How you doing? Welcome aboard. And,
Hi.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi. Nice to be here. Thank you, Tim. I came in the Guard in 1984. Spent a few years as a DSG, traditional, when I was going to college. Started full-time back in 1989 and working on the F-15 aircraft. I started actually working on the T-33 when I was a guardsman as a crew chief. And then when I became on full-time in 89, was working on the F-15s as a crew chief and did that until the airplanes were gone. Right. And then was offered, we were all offered opportunities with the new mission, and I ended up coming on board there and worked there with the intelligence wing until I retired federally 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. But you came right back.
Oh, actually, I retired militarily 5 years ago, excuse me. And then took a Title V civilian position for another 4 years.
Great.
And then retired from that. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
And we have Kyle's grandfather, Master Sergeant retired Richard Rooney Jr. Welcome aboard, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes.
So you stand out a bit. You're the active duty. You were in the active duty component.
Yes, I got caught up. I enlisted in May 1951 Korean War, and when I retired in '73. I retired as a master sergeant. I was an air traffic controller.
Oh, cool.
I served in the Korean War, served in the Vietnam War, and a little place in between.
Yeah, and you eventually ended up here at Otis. Was that your final?
I was stationed here twice in Otis. I got here before I went to Vietnam. I was in Vietnam in 68 and 69. And when I came back to Otis again because my family was still in the area, so it just happened to work out like that. But when I first got to Otis, I came in from, I was working with the Chinese over in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. And when I came here and I said, wow, look at this base. They had everything here. They had their cafeterias, and they were bigger than what we had over there combined even.
This was quite the base. I mean,
it was quite the base, yes. The mission was very interesting. I used to have the old Connies, C-121s, used to take off at least twice a day, and they had 7 tons of electronic equipment on board and an old aircraft. And, well, you used to go out and spend hours out there just circling and monitoring what's going on. But they had service, like I said, you can get anything you wanted on this big cafeterias, they had a gym. Even the Celtics used to practice in the gym there. They had an indoor swimming pool. And biggest thing we've ever seen as far as being in the Air Force at that time. But we got here in the wintertime. We were freezing, and they didn't have the highways they had now. We drove up from New York and came up and all snowing like heck, and we pulled into personnel assistance, and they set us up in bedding and everything with housing. Couldn't think of anything more cooperative than the people there and helping us. I had 4 children at the time. Loved the place.
Yeah, that's great.
Big hospital, everything.
How much has changed when you come onto the base now? How much?
Oh,
it's like a ghost town now.
It's
right?
it's like missing the whole area.
Yeah, yeah.
There's hardly. You could look up in the sky, always a plane flying, but now it's very seldom you get to see anything like that.
And the one unit on base that doesn't have planes is the Air Guard.
The Air Guard, yeah. Yeah. Well, they did, It was good when they moved down from Boston because they had just closed up here and they pulled a fighter wing out of here and everything else. And the Coast Guard was moving in, but it was a place that I'll always remember.
That's great.
I made a lot of friends, a lot of families. Coast Guard was here. We cooperated in everything,
Yeah. So I'm going to start in with a few questions about all 3 of your military services. In the Air Force and in any branch of the service, having wingmen and having people to your left and to your right that help you through your career is very important. It's something that we talk about on the Chevrons podcast all the time. Starting with you, Kyle, has there been a person in your career that really made a difference as a mentor, as a teammate, and how?
Yeah, I've had a couple. Initially, when I first came back from school in, I want to say like June of 2017, Tech Sergeant Carroll was my direct supervisor. He came over here. He picked me up from like student flight receiving, and that was kind of genuinely the first person that I had like real military interactions within like the 212th. And he took me in for seasoning days, and I was able to get out to Rhode Island, actually, the 143rd, and go see like some outside camera fiber jobs and stuff like that. So they really tried to get me like out instead of just kind of sitting doing CDC studies like most people do on their seasoning days, but they really put in the effort to get me out and like see actually what we do like on the job. So I would say that was the first person that really like struck me differently than the average person would and put in the extra work.
Yeah. Kevin, same question. Any great mentors in your career?
That's a great question because, culturally things have changed. And when you came in back in the 80s when I did, it was a very kind of strict environment. And So I think my trainer at the time was probably what I would consider the wingman, because it's someone who is looking out for your well-being and trying to get you on your feet so you don't mess up, But and it was I think he's passed now, but retired Master Sergeant Jim Plazik, and he was my trainer and taught me everything that I needed to know on the T-33 aircraft. And back in those days, he could sit in the truck and smoke a cigarette and tell me what to do from the truck. It's just a different world back then. But it was mostly like a men's fraternity back then.
Sure.
And what few women there were serving were usually up in the admin areas and so on. So on the flight line, it was a man's world, and it was a tough place to cut your teeth. But he was probably the closest as wingman, as you would say.
Was he more trainer than supervisor, or was he your supervisor also?
He was more trainer. Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective, because your supervisor, especially probably back in the day, was more of a disciplinarian than anything else, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
So and it's good to have that.
That was retired Chief Carl Taylor. He was my supervisor back then, and as you said, he was that strong figurehead in the office.
It's good to have something, a separation between mentor and boss.
Right.
Yeah. Because you gotta talk to somebody to know how to deal with the boss, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Richard, same question. You said you had come in during the Korean War.
Yeah.
So what were things like back then as far as mentors and people that showed you the ropes?
I didn't have, the outfits I were in, the maximum out about 30, 40 people, so we never really had a mentor. Mm-hmm. And when we moved, we only moved as an individual. We never moved as a group. So I didn't have the benefits of a mentor, but everybody I worked with was, I consider, a mentor and a friend, because we were really tight. Actually, we were pretty fortunate. We never had to do KP.
Yeah. So you're kind of all in it together.
We were all in together, we played ball together. Everything was done together. But when we moved on an individual basis. So every place we went, we had to start again, making your friends and group and everything else like that. But and you may never run into the people you knew before. I did 21 years, and in all that time, I think once I ran into somebody I started out with.
Well, going back to the history of it, which totally fascinates me. I'm a third-generation Air Force or Airman myself, and some of the history that occurred on this base, Chappie James.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the T-33, Kevin. We got one on display. He never flew it, but it's dressed up like his jet, Chappie James. Do you ever have the opportunity? Were you here at the same time as Chappie?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think so, no. But the aircraft that I've seen and the progress that things have made all along, and even when they came down, when the Alpha came down from Boston and stuff,
right.
And then they progressed from there to the F-15. I love aircraft.
Yeah.
I love aviation, and I've met a lot of pilots. I've talked to a lot of pilots, and I've helped a lot of pilots. And to me, it was always a pleasure, and I was always amazed at somebody just putting the power to it, releasing the brakes, and watching them lift it off.
Right.
But I was proud of the job I did. I was proud of the people I work with, and I was proud of the people I met.
That's great. So that brings me to my next question. And Kyle, why and how has the military been worth it for you? What makes you re-enlist?
I think it's kind of a mix of the experiences and the people. Everybody that's in knows that it comes with the moments that it is what it is. But most of the moments are very positive. I mean, I had a really good experience in my last unit with a lot of people that I became really close personal friends with. And when I was a DSG, I actually worked outside with one of my best friends. And we would have cookouts and barbecues, fires, like we would have parties on drills and stuff like that, and they really tried to like bring the unit together. And it's like you become, I don't want to use the word family because it's kind of corny to some people, but it's
with your whole family sitting across the table
yeah.
from you. It's corny.
It's you become like one. It's like everybody wants to hang out and do something, and like you go out on jobs with people, and you really get to know somebody more than just being like a traditional DSG. And I know not every shop is like that, and everybody has different experiences. But personally, I enjoy being in the military, and I'm gonna continue to push on and do my 20 at least. But I like the camaraderie. It's a little different being wing staff. It's a little awkward. I'm still trying to get used to not having like a unit with like 50 people in it. But everybody here was very welcoming, and I enjoy being here.
Right, great. Kevin, same question. You've been in, you were in over 20 years, and then you came back for a spell as a Title V. What kept you coming back?
So I think, and like my son had mentioned, it's the camaraderie, the sense of purpose, the team that, you kind of miss being on that team. You're all striving to a common goal and working together. And my dad, he served he was in the Marines. Mm-hmm. And I think, so to have a military background in your family from the beginning kind of attracts you to the opportunity. I used to bring Kyle out here when he was little, and I'd bring him out at night and watch, put the headset on and bring him out in the truck to the end of the runway, and he could watch the F-15s take off. And, so it's just, sometimes it starts with a simple moment, where
Sure.
you get an impression, and you say, hey, I'd love to be a part of that. And then you meet the people, and it makes it even better. So, but to be in the Guard and then to be full-time technician, as I was for all those years, and working on the aircraft, as Dad had mentioned, I was always in aviation. Oh, bless me. I was always interested in aviation. We had an aviation course in high school. It was the first time I ever came out here to Otis. We came on a field trip, and I remember sitting inside an F-106 in the cockpit looking at all of the instrumentation and buttons and and thinking to myself, how do they know what does what, And, to find myself years later sitting in the cockpit in an F-15 and actually running the engines and doing maintenance checks on them. And I had to know what every switch was, and I did. And so it was a great opportunity for someone like myself who came out of high school and didn't know what he was going to do, and but loved the aviation and had the memories of and the military background in the first place. And what kept me re-enlisting was just, I never found a reason to leave. The quality of life that you're allowed to have serving as a guardsman and having a full-time opportunity, it's a quality of life that allows you to have a long career. I think it's more difficult when you're in active duty, where you're moving around all the time. It's very,
Sure.
It's here you have a better opportunity of quality of life that extends your career. So I hope that's a good answer for me.
Absolutely. It's your answer. So Richard, same question. What kept you coming back and raising your right hand?
I just love doing the job. I love working with aviation. I've met a lot of people, a lot of interesting people. For instance, I don't know if you're going back quite a while, there was a movie out called The Flying Tigers.
Oh, yeah.
And Robert L. Scott was actually the pilot they were talking about. And I had the privilege of meeting him. He pinned a medal on me one time.
Oh, that's great.
And I would never forget a man like that. And he was, I shook his hand, he shook mine. I'm thinking about him sitting in his P-40 over in China. And I said, how did I meet this guy? Why is he here? And I was very, very proud to have met him. Very, very proud to have served. And we moved back and forth. I mean, the people were fantastic. Being a small outfit like that, when you pull in, it's not like nobody knows you. It's like everybody's there to help you.
All right.
And every time we moved, the family, kids, everybody chipped in. When we had to make friends all over again, and friends were very easy to make in the outfits, But we all loved our job, and we all loved helping pilots. precision radars, when pilot's in trouble, you get them down, that's it. And, if you can save a pilot's life, that's it. It was the main thing, yeah.
We're all airmen. We're all in this together.
We're all brothers in flight.
Right. So throughout your careers, and Kyle, again, I'll start with you. How do you stay motivated? Sometimes the job can get kind of monotonous, and the daily, what do they say? The in and outs, the day in, day out. How do you get through that and stay motivated?
Well, I think it's kind of a lot to do with people that you work with too, and how their demeanor is. I know I was with one unit for like 7 years, and then I went overseas for a couple months, and I kind of just wanted to switch it up. And that's kind of the beauty of things, is even though depending on where you're at in your career, you could put a stall kind of to picking up another stripe or something, but you can switch. And if you want to try something new, as long as you have the scores and there's a slot, then you can. So it's if you don't like what you're doing, you're not stuck. Like, there is a way that you can cross-train or transfer, move to bases, different things. So, but motivation is tough. A lot of people have good experiences and bad experiences, but it really just comes down to, like, if you truly enjoy what you're doing, then you don't really need motivation. You just enjoy it. But that's my my take on that.
Great. Kevin, 20-plus year career, they all can't be the best day at work ever. How do you stay motivated?
Right. Well, motivation also sometimes is just necessity. When you do start a family and this becomes your career, your motivation is to stay, try to keep sharp, try and keep ready, because things can get real really quick, as we saw on September 11th. And we would fly every single day, twice a day, and so us as maintainers would get into kind of a battle rhythm, as they would say, just doing the same stuff every day, day in and day out, and it was all routine, normal. You walk through the door, it was another day, whatever. And sometimes if, you've got a drill weekend in between, you're doing 12 days straight, you're getting tired, but then something happens real world, and you're training all the things that you've been doing as the mundane stuff. All of a sudden it's right there in the forefront. It's needed now, and you're ready to do it, and you're able to do it. And that's when the rubber meets the road, and your motivation comes through. It's sometimes it's just passive, and then it becomes active,
Richard, same question. How do you stay motivated?
Probably the same answer. Everybody, you're working as a unit. There is no individuals on it. You're working as a team, and you're part of a team, and you're proud of the people you're working with, and you want to make sure that you live up to their standards, and sometimes they live up to yours. If I see a car on the road and somebody's hurt, I'm motivated not only to help, to assist. If a pilot calls in and says, hey, I just flamed out, I'm bailing out, could you find out where I'm going to go? Track me. You try your best you want to get rescue to them. Well, I've seen a couple of accidents, and they get the fire trucks out there, get to save that man's life. And it's all about helping. And if a pilot's in trouble, he's lost, and you're trying to get him orientated to bring him back. It's part of your job, and it's a proud job you have, and you want to make sure you do it correctly.
That's great. Kyle, your grandfather just mentioned about pride, being proud of your job. What's your proudest moment so far?
I would say on deployment, setting up base defense systems, I'll call it. That was probably one of my proudest moments, when the A6 commander from Shaw came out and personally thanked our team chief for us setting up some crucial defense for a base in the Middle East. That was probably my proudest moment, because we were working countless hours. It's 115 degrees. I'm in a Connex box, splicing fiber, like just pouring sweat with the sand, the hot air, everything. So we were out there for like 2 months digging holes, laying fiber. We would have to work in the night because it was too hot during the day. Spiders, scorpions, snakes, foxes, and you name it. And we got it done. And then the full bird from Shaw came out personally with his command staff team to thank all of us. So I think that probably sits the deepest so far in my almost 8 years.
Great. Kevin?
I have a couple perspectives on that. I have kind of a team pride moment, of course, when we responded after September 11th and stood up 20 some odd aircraft within a very short period of time, got them all on status and alert ready. And it was a giant team effort, and we stayed on active for about a year. And I think that was my team pride. And my personal pride would be when my son raised his hand and came in, and when my aircraft was put on static display at the last air show that we had.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
what was the tail number?
106.
Nice.
Yeah.
Know that just like a reflex.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Richard?
I had quite a few of them, but one of them that really stands out. We were in Arizona, and it was a Navy base not too far away. And a Marine pilot was having a hard time, disorientated, cloudy weather. He was all kind of wanted to bail out. We didn't have radar. And he was trying to get down below the clouds. I says, you got mountains all over the place. Hang on, will you? And we were talking. And I says, he wanted to go. And I said, he's going to let a plane go. And so I says, what do you see down there? And it sounded like a road I know. And I says, well, does it have this? And he says, I got that. He says, okay. I told him which way to go on the road. And he flew and took the road right to, it was a Navy field at the end of it.
That's great.
And he landed, his name was Major Glenn Riley, United States Marine Corps. And he sent me a letter. And in the letter, he says, I want to thank you very much for helping me. He says, I'd come up and shake your hand and buy you a beer, but I don't have a clean uniform.
Oh. Yeah, and, when you're all by yourself in that cockpit, I'm sure just having somebody positive, on the other end, that's great. That's great. What's your worst moment, Kyle? And you don't have to divulge, some deep, dark secret. What would you consider a rough day?
Deployment, 100%. We had to go through Fieldcraft Hostel at McGuire, and then we went to Norfolk, Virginia to await the rotator. We loaded onto a bus in the pouring rain down to Norfolk, Virginia. We got stuck there for 2 weeks waiting on our rotator. We had snowstorms that delayed the flight. I got COVID, so I had to go to a Navy hospital to get swabbed. And then 3 of us, including our team chief, almost missed the rotator. And we were about to drive home from Virginia back to Massachusetts in our rental car, and then our lieutenant colonel pulled through with medical so that we got cleared to fly. But I think that was, on frustration basis, that was probably the worst. And I'd say physically, any fiber work in the desert was probably the most physically demanding thing I've probably had to do. But frustration, anybody that's deployed knows the whole rotator process and awaiting AMC terminals, and it's kind of usually always a nightmare. So that experience was probably the most frustrating thing I've had to deal with yet. But overall, it was a good learning experience, and I thoroughly enjoyed deploying overseas.
Well, that's the best outcome you can hope for is coming full circle, a rough day, but you turn it into a positive with your experience. Kevin?
Well, for me, I think I'd have to say that it was watching the base realignment and closure committee on TV turn around and tell us that we were going to be closed. I was off that day because I had pulled an alert shift, and we were days on, days off. I was on my off days, and hearing that was just devastating because of all the incredible work that we did here at this unit.
Post 9/11, especially all the
right,
the sorties, and and being told you're the best of the best, and
absolutely
not good enough to keep open though.
So that was the hard pill to swallow.
Sure.
And I became one of those defiant, grumpy old crew chiefs who says, I'm going to stay here till the planes, aren't here anymore, and so on. And but for me, it wasn't a good idea because I still was young in my career. I had 17 years invested in the technician system and federal service. And I have to thank now General Gaglio. Mm-hmm. At the time, she was, I think she was the maintenance officer for us, and we talked, and she came to me and she said, listen, you can't change what's going to happen here. You've got to do what's best for you and your family, and I suggest that you take a position with our new mission. And she kind of talked the sense into me, and and I'm glad that happened.
That's great. Mentors can come in different ways, and they could mentor you one decision, or it could be a long-term thing. But yeah, they're Richard.
Sitting here thinking of many things.
Yeah, what's one of the rough days?
Well, it was during Vietnam. 2 F4s coming back in.
Yeah.
Battle damage, minimum fuel, and monsoons. Visibility was way down. I was running the crew and my precision controller. We turned them both over to precision controller, and I kept checking with him. And I says, "You picking them up okay?" He says, "I'm only getting them every second or third sweep." So he says, I was monitoring him, and he kept telling the pilot they were low, trying to keep them up higher, because at the end of the runway was water. And all of a sudden, everything went silent, and I said, "You got him?" And I asked the tower, I said, "Is he on the deck?" "No, they're not on the deck, So I said, oh boy, no. So we went, and the 2 F4 pilots got out, the 2 radar guys got out. We lost the planes. But I was so happy that we got the guys out. They landed just short of the runway, but he got out alive, It was a happy one and a sad one. The aircraft can be replaced.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Bittersweet.
Yeah, bittersweet, yeah. But anxious, a very anxious trip.
Kyle, thinking of, or, considering your father, your grandfather, how much did they have to do with your joining and enlisting?
100%. Like you said earlier, I remember coming out here and sitting in the back of the trucks at the end of the runway and watching him launch the F-15s, and that was, at that point, it was kind of like, okay, the deal's sealed, like that's what I want to do. And then, the 2007, 2008, realignment happened. And I want to say 2008, I was in 5th grade, so I wasn't even really close to coming in, but I didn't really know what to do. I still wanted to join, but my passion is really aviation and airplanes, and I didn't know if I wanted to come here specifically, but I know I'm not really crazy about Western Mass. Just we live on Cape, let's be real. It's not Western Mass, so I didn't really want to go out there and do that mission, so I just stuck it out here, and it's still a good place. I'm not a big computer guy, so for me the Intel mission doesn't fit my bid personally, but that's why I went into cable before. So I went to a Voc Tech, Lower Cape Tech, and did electrical. So when the recruiter brought me in and they were like, oh, we do fiber optics and telecommunications, I figured that's the closest thing I can get to electrical, just on the telco side. So it worked out for me, even though I wanted to work on aircraft initially. But I mean, they're 110% the reason. It's kind of hard to come from that much background and not join. So they definitely attribute to 100% of the reason that I'm sitting where I am right now.
And Kevin, how proud are you of this guy?
Incredibly proud. I can't say enough about my son's decisions that he's made and the work that he's done, the places he's already been, the things. He was on the Seagull before I ever was.
Well, you were in the Tiger tracks.
That's probably true. So, yeah, looking through the archives is a lot of fun. But, yeah, very, very proud. And, I can't say enough about it. Thank you.
Sure. Richard, same question. How proud are you? Are you
I'm very
of this
proud
legacy?
of both of them, my son-in-law and my grandson. And every time I see them in uniform, I say, why aren't I in uniform anymore? But I'm very proud of them. They've done tremendous well. And every time I see them, I get a feeling of greatness, and say, hey, they're nice. They're great guys. They serve. They're doing what they can do.
Carry on the tradition. So I wanted to kind of start to wrap up, but with a little more history of Otis, because as you said before, you were stationed here at Otis twice.
Twice, yeah.
And so I'd like to get a little bit more of the history of this place. What was it like serving here?
Oh, like I say, it was fantastic. Well, I came from a place and working with the Chinese, and we had nothing, and then everything was right here for everybody. But I watched the pilots fly every day on any type of conditions. The linemen, snow, sleet, and New England weather.
Yeah.
And they were out there supporting them, and the fighter pilots, everything was the same. Everything that you would want in a military man, say, oh, this is what these guys do. They put everything on the line. It's a lineman, a cook, 24 hours a day, fireman, corpsman, hospital. It's right there. And I didn't get to see too much of that in the other because I moved around quite a bit. And like I said, we were a very small outfit. But when I got here and I said, this is a base. This is something. And to see the people, see the courtesy, and on the roads, walking, hi, how are you, saluting, and you felt proud to salute, But I thought the base was something out of this world, and now every time I come back, I get sad now, and every time they're taking down another barracks or move something out, and I say, where did all of this go? And I think of everything that was here, and it's not here anymore, but it'll always be in my memory.
My first base was Loring Air Force Base up in Aroostook County,
nice
in Maine.
And cold.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I left there in 89. I left there in 89, and to go back because they got bracked in 94. To go back, I've been back twice, and to see how the place looks now is completely contrary to my memories. Like it was such an active base.
I remember I was going to Vietnam, and we were looking for a place to put my family. When we went up to Maine, when the base had closed up there, and took the family up, and I have a daughter that she's not very tall, and we get up there, and the guy says, oh, we get snow. Sometimes it comes up to the second floor. So she turned around and me, Dad, I'm not that tall. I'm not going to stay here. But all the bases are just closing, Not too many left.
Yeah, a lot of bases have closed, even in, around the time frame that Kevin and I joined, a lot of bases have closed since then. It's amazing.
Well, I started out at Luke Air Force Base where the flying, the Thunderbirds started.
Oh, right.
And it would start, two second lieutenants, they were both brothers, twins, and they kind of got the organization going. And I'll always remember that because I used to go see the shows when they were all over. And I said, these two lieutenants, they're not lieutenants anymore. They were generals almost. But a long time ago, time flies, and so does the Air Force.
Right. So the last question I want to ask each of you is, do you have any words of wisdom for people coming up or people coming and listening to this podcast? We're talking the enlisted force. Any words of wisdom? And we'll start with the most junior person on the panel. Kyle, you got any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in and you're not exactly sure like what you're doing and where you're going, if you're kind of lost in your career, just branch out and explore other options. It never hurts. There's a lot more in a wing than you would expect there to be. I didn't know, coming from a squadron that was across the base, I genuinely didn't know how much inside of a wing there is and how much stuff there is to do. So if you're not happy where you're at, just look at other options before you just say, oh well, I'm just gonna get out, because it's not worth getting out genuinely. There's a lot of things you can do within a base or another base, and if you're looking to join, just contact a recruiter. And my recruiter was fantastic. I've never met a bad guard recruiter. I've never heard anybody say, a guard recruiter lied to me. I mean, our state benefits are fantastic. This wing is fantastic. I've never had anybody do me wrong or anything like that here, and I thoroughly enjoy being here. So,
well, and even if there isn't, maybe you're not eligible for a cross-training opportunity, there's always special duties too.
Yeah, no, you can definitely. I mean, it's like you can do honor guard, or I know other bases.
Become a recruiter.
Yeah, you definitely could. I mean, there's endless opportunity. You just need to know where to look and how to find it. And if you have a really good mentor or supervisor, that also can genuinely help a lot with that. So,
great advice. Thank you, Kevin. Any words of wisdom for people who are currently serving?
Well, I'll say ditto to everything my son just spoke upon, and it well articulated point of view. But I'll add to that we all need to do something for a living, and what's been a wonderful experience about this career is that it's more than just a job. The sense of purpose, the camaraderie, the pride. You're doing it more for than just for yourself. It's been rewarding that way, and it's a quality of life and enrichment of purpose that's larger than I ever knew. I mean, I could still stand there at Family Day and I'll get a lump in my throat.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's been very rewarding.
Great. Richard.
Well, like I say, it's a big family.
Yeah.
What you put into the family, well, you'll get back 20 times over. And if you need help, there's no place else to go but the family. It's about, well, like I say, it's a fantastic way of life. And like life itself, put into it, return ward.
That's great. Great advice. Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and it's been great listening to your stories. And Richard, thank you very much for your service. Kevin, same to you.
Appreciate the invite.
Kyle, it's we're kind of coworkers. We run across each other in the hallway these days. It's good to see you every day.
Thank you for yours, sir.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you. I appreciate
Tim,
it.
for your service.
Before we go, here's a bit of a preview from our other podcast, Chevrons. From junior enlisted to senior leaders and those in between, we interview notable individuals to address everyday challenges and hurdles the enlisted force faces. In this episode, we speak to 4 recent participants from the technical sergeants involved in mentoring enlisted airmen, or the Time Workshop, held at Hanscom Air Force Base earlier this month. Technical sergeants from several Air National Guard units throughout the Northeast, as well as a handful of members of the Paraguayan Armed Forces, participated. Attendees were guided by several Chief Master Sergeants and subject matter experts about how to develop their leadership skills. Discussions were led on topics such as empowerment, total force fitness, generational leadership, emotional intelligence, and innovation. Our episode today is sort of a live trip report of the conference. What worked, what didn't, and what were some of the lessons learned, and why workshops like this are so valuable in the development of airmen and NCOs at all levels.
But also people just interacting from, the 109th, don't really know where they are geographically on a map. I had to honestly look it up. But having those conversations and building those pairs, especially coming from a legal background, we're a very small office, we're a very small AFSC. So having the opportunity to talk to someone completely different realm on what they do is something that you can't get on a day-to-day basis.
But the biggest takeaway for me from this is they had us do an exercise, and they put a list of 40 words on the board, and they were like, okay, how would you describe yourself as a leader? And you get to pick 20 of them. And then the second question was, okay, now using 10 of the 20 that you picked, how do you think your subordinates would describe you as a leader? And realistically, I sat there and I was like, man, I have no idea. I've never taken the time to ask my troops what they think of me. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? And get actual constructive criticism. You know what I mean? I don't want a yes man who's going to be like, oh yeah, you're doing great. Nothing's wrong. You can't improve anywhere. You're perfect across the board, because we all know that's, a load of crap. So that was really good for me.
For me, it's being able to talk to the technical side, talk to our team, explain kind of some of the visions, some of the ideas that we have, what we're trying to work towards, but then getting the feedback from them to say, I think you're on track, or maybe we should look at something different, or maybe we should refocus or recage. And I gain a lot from that, because again, same with the same concept that you brought up, I don't want to hear I'm doing a great job. If I'm doing a great job, tell me. But if I'm sideways, I tell that to my group all the time, just let me know. And to have the conversations throughout, during the briefs, but really after the briefs, I think is just really important, and it just shows the maturity and the involvement and the growing of the force, that ultimately our job is to train our replacements.
Yeah, I think, with General Brown's action order eliminating bureaucracy, I think it's important for all leaders. And when I say all leaders writ large across the force, anywhere from a staff sergeant all the way up to the top, we're all leaders in some way, shape, or form. And I think we all need to do our part to get behind eliminating bureaucracy, making processes easier, being smarter about decisions.
The end of summer is here, and there is one tradition the Eagle's Nest doesn't want you to miss: their annual barbecue. This year's barbecue is scheduled for Saturday, August 26th from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m. and will feature grilled chicken, beans, potato salad, and a roll for $8, or 2 hot dogs and chips for $5. There will be plenty of music for your listening and dancing pleasure, plus opportunities for audience participation. The Jody Moore Band will be performing until 8 p.m., and the night will still be young as the 102nd's own DJ Bobby hosts Otis After Dark. The barbecue band and DJ are open to everyone. Members and non-members of the Eagle's Nest are welcome.
The summer is nearly over when the annual barbecue happens. With that in mind, let's take a look at some of the holidays and observances coming over the next month or so. August 26th, the day that the first day of the RSD, is Women's Equality Day. We also have Banana Lovers Day on August 27th. Julia, do you know why most people are fans of bananas? Why they love them?
Why?
Because they have appeal.
That's a good one, Tim.
Yeah, you like that. September 1st is World Letter Writing Day. When's the last time you wrote a letter?
In BMT, I'd have to say.
Oh, how many? You must have sent out a lot of letters. You got a lot of family.
1 million. My mom likes to write letters.
That's cool. September 3rd is National Pet Rock Day. You ever had a pet rock?
I'm sure I've had a pet rock.
And the week of September 3rd to 9th, it's so important they devote a whole week to it, is National Waffle Week. Are you a fan of waffles?
Yes, everyone needs a waffle week.
What kind? Eggos or Belgian?
Oh, I don't know. I grew up on Eggos, didn't everyone?
September 4th is Labor Day. Eat an extra dessert day. It's Labor Day and eat an extra dessert day. So go ahead, have that extra piece of cake. You've earned it. National Coffee Ice Cream Day is September 6th. Is there a more New England observance than that?
No.
No? When is National Fluffernutter Day? That's like the other,
It's very New England.
Yeah. Peanut butter and marshmallow fluff. September 10th is Grandparents' Day. If you still got grandparents around, give them a call and let them know that you're thinking about them. They would appreciate that. September 11th is Patriot Day. Needs no explanation. Take a moment to remember. September 18th, Locate an Old Friend Day. It's also National Cheeseburger Day, so maybe look up an old friend and invite them out for a cheeseburger. It's also happy 76th birthday to the United States Air Force. You don't look a day over 70. September 23rd is the fall equinox, or the first day of fall. September 26th is Lumberjack Day and National Pancake Day. What are the odds, Julia, that National Waffle Week and National Pancake Day are in the same month?
Why does Waffle Week happen and not Pancake Week?
I know. You would think pancakes would be like higher up on the list.
You'd think so.
September 30th is International Podcast Day. Celebrate, should we have a cake on this podcast? Let's see. From September 15th to October 15th is Hispanic Heritage Month. Thanks for listening to The Seagull. For more news from the 102nd Intelligence Wing, visit our website at www.102iw.ang.af.mil/links or search for 102IW on any major social media platform.